Hi, how you doing? It's Richard Moore, the founder of Go Be Remarkable, the owner of Ignite Growth Consultancy, and the author of the Amazon bestseller, Remarkable Business Growth. I just want to welcome you to the first of our GBR Live, Go Be Remarkable live shows. I'm going to run these shows once a month, and they're really aimed to help you grow a remarkable business. Now, what do I mean by remarkable businesses? Well, there's two ways I define it in the book. The first is being remarkable at every touch point. So every customer who comes in contact with you, every prospect, every lead, every partner you work with, they all think, wow, about your business. So that's something to strive for because it's a major differentiator in the marketplace, is being remarkable. And so you're remembered and people go away thinking, wow, that experience was incredible. The other thing that I always feel defines a remarkable business is the ability to scale and double revenue every 12 months if you want to. Many business owners want to grow slower than that, but having the ability to do that is a core piece of running a remarkable business, whether you're on startup phase, whether you're organically growing, or you want to push to be a performance business. Whatever phase you are in business, having that ability to be able to scale up, especially at the moment with the challenges we're all facing, is really key. And that's what this show's aimed to do. It's aimed to share things that I've seen work, that my guests have seen work, and really things that are very practical that you can put into action to create a remarkable business for yourself. So they're going to be running monthly, usually middle of the month, and I'm going to have a special guest on each time. Today's special guest, I was really pleased could join us because it's Dan Tyre. He wrote the foreword to my book, someone I've known for about 6 or 7 years now. Full of energy. Anyone who's seen Dan speak will know that he brings the energy every time he talks. He's also an entrepreneur, a mentor, a director at HubSpot. He's been there 15 years, helped grow that business into the size of business it is now. So a really interesting guest, and he's always drops plenty of insights and things to help you grow your business. So without further ado, let's bring Dan into the show.
Boom! Hey, oh my goodness. That was amazing. I should take you on the road with me. Unbelievable, Richard. That was awesome. And wait a second. I didn't know this was the first one. You invited me to the inaugural live event?
The first one, yeah. We had to wait for the right guest on the right show, Dan, before we could launch this. So, yeah.
Wow. Now I feel I was honored before, but now amazing. And super excited to be here. And if you're an introvert, it's going to be very annoying because I am pretty loud. I got this big energy. Some people like it in like short bursts, right? My daughter, who has to live with it for a long time, she's like, Dad, not today. My wife is like, okay, I've had it. You go out in the backyard and like go into your garden. But it's usually fun. I love to meet with entrepreneurs all over the world. Super excited about the book. And I was glancing at it last night. I'm like, okay, like I need to be current on it. I've read it before. Actually, I've read it 1.5 times. And it's like, it is remarkable. And congratulations on you on like writing it. Congratulations on being a best-selling author, right? #1 in on Amazon for marketing and sales, right? Amazing.
And entrepreneurship and business development.
Amazing.
2 categories, yeah. We were pleased with that.
And then, of course, I've got my Lincoln Gin here, right? Who sent this to me, Richard?
That was myself and Rachel when we were in our agency. Exactly.
Rachel, a shout out to Rachel. Oh my goodness.
Shout out to Rachel.
We're doing promotion on this. Rachel is like the, she's the adult supervision in this relationship. She's the person who gets stuff done. I'm always, first of all, I'm a huge Richard Moore fan, right? Because you live the process. Remarkable growth isn't just scale, although you go into that a lot in the book. Right. But it's also being a remarkable individual. And that starts with helping people. Right. And as long as I've known you, I think the first time I met you was in Dublin, right? In the middle of a hurricane.
In Dublin, that's correct. Yeah, we'd come across to HubSpot's European head office and spent a couple of days with you on your sales training. So,
it was obvious that you had the inbound spirit of helping first. Right. And that is remarkable. Right. Still in 2023, you have to remind people, #1, to be a human being. And you're a damn fine human being. It's taking ice baths now. Is that what you told me in the briefing meeting? You take ice baths?
Wim Hof breathing and Wim Hof ice baths and showers in the morning. Yeah.
You're going to live to be 112. Oh my goodness, right? All these people who live past 100 are because they're taking ice baths, right? And you like helping people, right? You told me the reason you wrote the book is you wanted to help give people a blueprint for how to scale, right? And you did, right? And so
Yeah.
I'm happy to be involved in the project. Happy to be here on the first GBR live, and super excited to talk with you and our listeners about how to focus on remarkable growth.
Amazing. Well, give people who haven't seen you before, Dan, a potted history. And this is a 5-minute version of the 20-minute version. So
I love it. Yeah. You know about my bio, right? It goes 28 minutes. The podcast will be over by the time we do it. All right. So first of all, I'm the luckiest guy in the world, right? It's Father's Day weekend. Just finished it. I have two incredible, socially responsible children, Sally and Eli, right? Who are off doing their own stuff, which always makes me proud. I've been married for 35 years to the beautiful Amy Tyre. I'm the big energy. She's the smart Tyre. She thinks about things. She coordinates things. She is a great life partner, spiritual, thoughtful, amazing. She helps people with their digestive issues. Amazing. She's running a program this next week, I think, called the Digestive Coach. If you want information, let me know. Anyway, I'm a 5-time entrepreneur, right? I went to university in upstate New York, right? And I was an entrepreneur in college, worked my way through school selling books door to door, which is when I first got accustomed to the science of sales, right? My first a real job was selling computers back when computers were like $10,000 a pop. And I worked for this company called the Computer Store, which was the worst run company in America, right? It had nepotism problems, inventory problems. It had sales problems. They had an exclusive to sell Apple computer products east of the Mississippi, and they found a way to screw it up. Anyway, I was their top salesperson. A year in, my boss, Roger, comes to me and he goes, I'm quitting. I'm like, why? He's like, I'm going to a startup. I'm like, what's a startup? He's like, it's a small company. It's going to go quick. I'm like, all right, knock yourself out. He's like, no. I want to bring you with me. I'm like, I already have a job. He goes, I'll give you $100 more a month US. And I'm like, okay, I'm a startup guy. Boom. So, and that changed my life, right? It's just luck. Roger decided to move to this small company. It's $2 million in revenue. And over the next, 9 years, it grew to $1.4 billion US, right? Grew like a weed. And I became their turnaround expert working in Boston, LA, San Francisco, and New York City. Then I quit and I started my own company as founder and CEO. Grew that business to $30 million, sold it to a Phoenix-based company. That's how I got to Arizona. My third startup was a training company, national training company throughout North America. My fourth startup got bought out by Microsoft, lucky me. Wow. And my boss at Groove Networks was this guy, Brian Halligan, right? And when Microsoft bought Groove, right, he went to MIT and met Dharmesh. I worked for Microsoft for 6 months, which was amazing, right? And then when they were ready to go to market, they called me and said, we want you to join HubSpot in the early stage. So I, just as luck, became employee number 6 at HubSpot. And I'm still there, 16 years, full-time at HubSpot. Now I work in 14 years in the sales organization now in the last few years for HubSpot Academy. And if you don't know HubSpot Academy, just Google it. You know HubSpot Academy, Richard.
Best training out there. I always put everybody in touch with it because I think it still is the best training you can have in digital.
Awesome. So, how much does it cost to go to HubSpot Academy?
Nothing.
It's zero, free. Right? So there's 400 lessons and classes, 450,000 people who have a current certification, millions of people who've gone through the program over the last 11 years. We just celebrated our 11th birthday. Courtney Sembler is the visionary who runs it, and I am responsible for the boot camp program of cohort-based learning of teaching folks, and it's been amazing, right? And it's partly the remarkable growth business philosophy, partly the inbound business philosophy of always helping, which is the reason I'm here. The reason why we're trying to assist all entrepreneurs, from solo entrepreneurs all the way up to multi-million-dollar companies, right? To ensure that they're authentic, to make sure that they're doing it the right way, to make sure that they're really remarkable.
Incredible. And you were good enough to write the foreword to the book, Dan. In the foreword, you talked about the buyer economy, this buyer economy that we all work within and that we're growing our businesses in. And you talk about having to change the way we do business. What did you mean when you talked about that? Just expand a little bit on that.
You asked me to talk about the modern buyer economy, right? And as I was reviewing it last night, I'm like, wait a second. Modern in 2023 means like last Tuesday, right? And like we've been doing this for a while, right? And but it still applies, right? And the idea of helping first, right, is super important. It is a foundation of human beings, of being social, right? And it starts with just treating people like human beings. Now, you'd think that in 2023, I wouldn't have to remind people to treat people like human beings. But if you're spamming folks, if you're sending emails that no one wants, if you're buying lists, doing stuff like that, if you're being rude or mean, if you've got a phone tree, this drives me a little bit like crazy. When I call into somebody and into a company and I'm just trying to find somebody and it's impossible to get a human being, right? And there's all these ways that you have to set up the ability for being open for people who are having difficulty to be able to connect you. So being human, right, means like just flipping the script a little bit. And what would you want if you were a customer as opposed to if it was working the other way around? The second thing about the buyer economy now is that you always help first, right? You help everybody, right? Because the ability for you to help, first of all, puts people on your radar screen. Second of all, which would you prefer, Richard? Somebody who calls and tries to sell you something, or somebody who calls you and tries to help?
Yeah, always the help, always those natural conversations, I think.
Exactly. And virtually everybody who's listened to this live stream can help in some fashion, even if it's directing to somebody else, even if it's saying, you know what, that's not my area of expertise. You might want to go talk to Richard. You might want to talk to Rachel. You might want to go to talk to David, any of those kind of things. Right. But in most cases, they're connecting you for some reason. And if it isn't, there's lots of ways to lead somebody to define what they're looking for, to identify ways that they can redefine the problem, easy, quick fixes that give people some level of comfort that they have a good understanding of how to approach a better solution. And then the third thing around being remarkable is that focus beats bandwidth, right? This is something that is started like 8 years ago, and then it's refined through the global pandemic, then refined in 2023. And it used to be that it was very easy for people to be like horizontal, to help everybody. Today, right, if you've got a stomach ache, you want a gastroenterologist. You want somebody who can get really time to value. The key of being remarkable is helping somebody get from A to B as quickly as possible. That hashtag time to value is the essential part. And in today's world, people are willing to pay a lot of money for that. If you can buy a book and you can start getting remarkable growth, that's the best investment you'll ever make, right? So
you think going narrow and deep rather than broad is always the way. Yeah.
It's not always been the way. We used to be horizontal and apply. Today, narrow and deep makes more sense because people want the value more quickly. What they want is somebody, number one, who understands them. Number two, has done it before, right? It used to be we're a little concerned that they would work with competition. Now there's so much competition, it doesn't matter. What we want now is somebody who understands our vocabulary or seasonality, understands our business, and can move from A to B or C very, very quickly and lead us along the way. And it turns out people are willing to pay a lot of time, a lot of money for that, because that time that you're saving is incredibly valuable. Right. The fourth foundation is solving for the customer. And this is really where your book shines. Right. Now, solving for the customer. What does that mean to you, Richard?
It means that you become very buyer focused. You're very customer focused. You're not projecting your message onto people. You're understanding who they are, going really deep on understanding their problems and providing solutions for them, but helping them make the right decision for them, I think, is the way I always see it.
It's 100% right. And smaller companies are better in that because you're dealing one-on-one. You're talking to the CEO or president. You're talking to the guy who actually fixes the problems that are created. You're talking about somebody who has a deep experience. As you scale your business, it becomes harder, right? Because you don't have that small company feel. It's a little bit like more difficult to coordinate and approach more complex problems. And some of the issues fall out of the standard kind of process. Right. So understanding how to solve for the prospect and the customer and the long-term customer. Right. The key is segmenting and understanding what people are looking for. right? And the inbound sales process, HubSpot is built on an inbound process, right? That starts with being human and then helps not sell, and then focus rather than being general, and then solving for the customer, right? When somebody's just in education mode, if you start pushing on them about a product or a service, right, it's not the right vibe, right? They turn it right off. They're like, no, too pushy. If they're in consideration stage, right, they're trying to make a decision. Now they want that information. Now they want comparison tables and things like that. Then when they're in the decision mode, they want to understand what they can reasonably expect through the entire process. Then once they become a customer, they don't want to go back to the beginning. They want to make sure that there's full loop from all the way the first time you talk. And that requires the use of technology, easy to use technology, right? Well, HubSpot's a leader in front office software, the number one CRM, the number one marketing software, the number one sales software in the world, right? That makes that process easy from just a solo entrepreneur all the way to a multi-billion-dollar company.
Which we definitely touch on in the systems part of this. So when you talk about, I'm going to go on to the next question. What are the key processes? Because I talk in the book a lot about building this inbound lead generation and customer acquisition machine at the heart of your business. And that's very process driven. So what do you think are the key things people need to think about?
All right, very good. So the first thing is define your niche, right? You're a good entrepreneur. And when I was saying you got to be focused rather than broad, I saw your shoulders like because, right? Richard, how easy is it for you to turn down business?
It's well, it's pretty easy because we know exactly who we can help the best. So
okay, you're not that is remarkable, and that is the right answer, right? And the hardest thing to do is when it's not a good fit, but you still want and need the business, and there's some value. I don't think people do it to just to take money. I think they're thinking, okay, I can help them, but if you define your niche, right, so that there's where you do your best work, where you understand the vocabulary, you understand the seasonality, you understand the motion and process, where it's like second nature to you, right? Then you focus on that niche. And actually, the data says that if you're trying to scale your business, right, the easiest way to scale in the manner that Remarkable Growth talks about, which is 100% per year, is to pick that swim lane, stovepipe, like specific definition in the vertical market, in the size of company, in the location of company, and say, no, this is where we do our best work. Now, you can always be opportunistic. You can always go outside of that, but at least 60 to 70% of your business should come from that particular area, right? And defining that niche is hard for many entrepreneurs, but it's the first step. Number two is you have to have a written plan. Right. And Remarkable Growth gives you the foundations of that plan. But how many times do you talk to entrepreneurs and it's all like in their brain? They're like, no, what we want to do is this. I'm like, all right, where's the document that says that? And they're like,
methodology is something you need to follow because it's repeatable, isn't it?
As an advisor, when I was doing my bio, I've invested in about 30 angel investments in scale-up companies, right? I enjoy social responsibility. I enjoy working with entrepreneurs as they're scaling. It turns out after 40 years of helping companies scale, I'm reasonably good at it. And I always say, all right, you have to have a written plan because I can't see into your brain. And it changes all the time. And if you want an advisor to take a look at it, you need two things. Number one, like a quick PowerPoint or overview of this is what you're going to do. And you also need to have a spreadsheet that says this is the plan that I'm going to have for the next 12 months, sometimes 18 months, because entrepreneurs are always so positive, right? You have to be like neurotic about remembering everything, but you also have to be positive, and just entrepreneurs just are naturally positive, and the numbers don't lie. So I always want the entrepreneur to say, this is how we're going to do it. When you're talking about 100% growth, Richard, right, that is going to be a stretch in most cases, right? So the easiest way to get 100% growth is to have done 200% growth the previous year, and then moderate that so that you understand how to focus on your best fit customer. Right. So that planning of having that business plan and then having that forecast is pretty important. On that forecast, I just went through this with a local HubSpot solutions partner where he says, we're not growing quick enough. And when I got the numbers, it wasn't that he wasn't growing quick enough. He was bringing lots of business, right? But the customer retention wasn't there, right? And he didn't even see that, right? It wasn't a question until he put it into the document, until we saw that this is the number of new customers coming in, but this is the number of customers that retaining, right? And it really drove home the importance of having that data at your fingertips.
Delighting your customers is the most important thing, as I say in the book, isn't it? Because otherwise you just become a very busy hamster on a wheel trying to always generate new leads when actually they're just disappearing out the back end.
Yeah, exactly right. And that used to be okay. You used to be able to build a business based on just cycling people in and out. That's not the way it is anymore, right? Because with social media and word of mouth, right, that becomes your most important new business generator, right? The HubSpot calls it the flywheel, right? Yeah. And your customers are at the center of the flywheel. And if you've got good word of mouth, right, I always ask, I'll ask our listeners, our live stream listeners, all right, do you guys like more word of mouth leads, right? And what's the answer to that, Richard? Does your listening audience want more word of mouth leads?
Yeah, definitely.
Why? Why do they want more word of mouth leads?
Because they're a lot warmer leads. They already know the brand. They're going to convert.
Yeah, exactly. And they're free, right? And when you say, Dan, when you come to Lincoln, I want you to do this, and then I'm going to believe you, right? We're friends. That is not something I'm going to research, right? No. That trust that you and I built up over the last 7 years, I'm going to apply that. And so if I'm looking for an accountant, if I'm looking for a landscaper, if I'm looking for shelving, whatever, right, that word of mouth becomes very important. To do that, right, to get that remarkable growth, right, you can't keep losing customers. You have to have that core customer base. And so you have to position it so the customers stick around so that they feel special. And then you have to utilize the flywheel marketing, right, so that they become front and center. That means use your case studies. That means videos of why customers love you. And what we found is that that is very, very important for setting the right attitude, for moving people along, for answering the right questions, and for us to gain the right type of customers. In the old days, it was buyer beware. If you bought the wrong software, bought the wrong wheelbarrow, or bought the wrong whatever, right, you didn't have any recourse. Today, it's seller beware. Today, you want to make sure that everybody you bring on is going to be an advocate for your company. Is going to be in the front and center of understanding the best way to share your special sauce, to recommend you, right? And that is a huge assist in attracting the right folks, right? And then delighting, engaging the right folks, because that's who your tribe is, right? And then delighting them so they stick around for a long time.
And being in sales all your life, how have you seen that change over the years then? In line with that, once you're attracted.
Well, that's pretty interesting. Now I'm in marketing, which is just flat out weird, right? The term schmarketing, you're familiar with that term, right, Richard?
Schmarketing, yeah,
you said it right. I like that. Schmarketing. It's sales and marketing pushed together. I invented that term.
Someone used it in one of their books as well, didn't they?
Look at that. Yes, thank you very much. Yes. Todd and I had a blast writing that book, and we talked a lot about the interaction between sales and marketing, because it's true. In the old days, sales and marketing were totally separate. They didn't necessarily get along. In fact, marketing and sales like pretty much hated each other, because sales got all the glory. Marketing kind of did all the work, not all the work, but a lot of the work. Sales got all the glory. We got all the budget. We got all the headcount, right? And marketing got all the grief, right? If the company wasn't doing good, it was marketing's fault. We didn't have enough leads. If the company wasn't doing good and we had too many leads, we blame marketing because we didn't know which ones to call first. And salespeople would take the lead. They would manage through the entire process, right? They would engage the lead. They would qualify the lead. They would demo the lead. They'd answer objections. They'd close the deal. And then you'd never see us again. Today, in 2023, it's completely different. There's this philosophy now where your customers will go out and they'll swarm. They'll do a lot of like research in a short period of time. They'll spend several hours on your website. They'll look at a variety of different YouTube videos. They'll like spend a lot of time digging really deep, and then they'll ghost you. They won't do anything for the next 6 months. Have you ever seen that phenomena, Richard?
Last week, we saw it last week with a customer on our website. 46 page visits in 46 pages viewed in 24 hours.
That's right. And you're like, oh my goodness, you're spending more time on my website than I am, right? And then they just disappear. And it used to be unique. It's not unique anymore. What's happened is that with the changing priorities and all the things that are involved in the modern world, people get very excited. And because of the access of all this free information, they use it. They go in and they investigate it. And they either make a decision, this is not exactly right for me, and they leave for another alternative, or they just drop it, right? But then if that is a sales lead and sales is actively working with those folks, right? First of all, they can't get annoyed. Second of all, they have to notice that. Then that lead goes back to marketing where there's more nurturing. And in 2 years down the road, if they see the exact same phenomena, now the salesperson can engage and say, wait a second, I saw that you had this activity in 2023. Now it's 2025. It's kind of the same activity. What's going on? And the ability to have access to that data, the ability to recognize that that is a way in which people buy in the modern buyer economy. And the fact that sales and marketing has to work together because it's the same information. It's just sales is going to use it a little bit differently, right? Marketing is going to use it strategically, but it's all tied together because we've got to play the long game, right? When we engage with customers at HubSpot, right? If they're not interested in buying software, we're like, okay, we'll continue to help. Right. Because we're playing the long game. Sooner or later, there's likely ways, whether it's HubSpot Academy or all the free software that we offer, free technologies, all those kind of things that we're able to help rather than sell. And there's been lots of people who come up to me over the years and said, Dan, I apologize. And I'm like, for what? They're like, I never paid HubSpot a dime. I love you guys. I'm like, have you ever referred a customer? And they're like, yes, dozens. And I'm like, okay, well, that's what it's designed to do. Right. It's designed to help you be a better entrepreneur, right? Just like your book, right? It's designed to give you the basics. And then if you need more value, if you want to move more quickly, if you want a more feature rich kind of product, then you go to a paid product. Then it's a little easier.
Well, the interesting story with that guy who was on the website 46 times is that we then saw him download a brochure because that was in HubSpot. We saw what emails it opened. We picked the phone up and he bought the next day. So it's it all works.
Amazing. Exactly. And the fact that you knew that, the fact that you had access to that data, that's part of the remarkable growth story. So leveraging technology is essential to build a truly remarkable business, right? Absolutely. And the best type of remarkable growth, maybe I should ask this as a question. For me, the best part is that it's predictable. That's why I want that spreadsheet, right? As the CEO and senior management team, you probably have the best idea of what can reasonably be expected over the next 12 months, right? Absolutely. And we want to understand what your expectation is. And then we want to use modern technology to ensure that the easy stuff is taken care of for both sales, marketing, customer success, operations, everything. Then we want to closely look at that data, right? And when we were talking in the briefing meeting, this predictable growth in any economy, right? Because there's lots of turmoil in the world. There's lots of curveballs. There's lots of irrational events, right? And good business people plan for that, right? The key is the scale and applying yourself to the activities, the processes, the tools, the technology that allows you to get found via the website, then go into the CRM and then utilize marketing automation. And that's not just for everyone. It goes all the way down to like solo entrepreneurs, right? Just people who are looking for a handful of customers, right? And the technology is super easy today. Right. It starts it free via HubSpot or other companies and allows people to focus on the most important components of adding value to their specific product.
Absolutely. Right. Let's move on to a question we were sent in for the show, Dan. We had a question sent in by Pete Dewhurst. He said, what would you focus on first, a broader inbound marketing campaign or a more targeted ABM campaign?
Ooh, Pete, go back and listen to the first 20 minutes of this live stream. But that's awesome. Yes, it's always targeted. Why? Because when I talk to entrepreneurs in Lincoln, in the UK, they know instantly if I'm familiar with geography, if I'm familiar with the vertical market, if I'm familiar with the size of company, right? And that targeted approach, right? My co-author, Todd Hockenberry of the Inbound Organization, holds 3 patents, right, in lasers. And he's an industrial guy. He sells only to manufacturing. If you're professional services or education, he's like, I can help you, but just take the free stuff, right? His clients are all industrial and manufacturing because he's such a manufacturing guy. You know instantly when he walks in the room, right? The vocabulary, the pace, the questions that he asks, it is amazing. And that bonding experience, first of all, shows the prospects and customers that he's an industrial and manufacturing guy, helps them understand that he knows their business, right? Elevates the relationship where they know that they can trust him, and then they can get down to working through the specific details of how we do that. So I would say the answer to this question is a targeted ABM campaign. Now, one of the things that somebody asked this week is like, how many people do I need in my ABM campaign? And when you're targeting customers, Richard, how many prospecting or customers prospects do you look for in your ABM campaign?
Well, it depends on the role within the company. So we'll, usually with ABM, it'll be higher value companies. So you want multiple people within that company and to be.
Exactly. The reason I say that is because within all of our portfolio companies, sometimes it's up to 30. People say, you'll talk to 30 folks in a company. And we're like, yes. Everybody from an entry-level intern all the way up to the CTO. And in the old days, you called high. Right? Not wasted, right? Not like smoking dope first. You called high into the organization that allowed you to connect directly to the CEO, right? That's not the way we do it today. We prioritize working within their organization so that you can reference all of the research that you've done. Because in today's world, first of all, it's going to be hard to get to that person. Second of all, you need to understand the specific pain that they're going through. Number 3, you want to make sure that you have all of the details because you're going to have just 1 or 2 shots, and you want to make sure that it's well researched, that the senior executive knows that you've spent time with their organization, and that you have a good understanding of the problem and a proposed solution, right? And so therefore, having all that ancillary information and then explaining, no, I talked with Richard, Rachel, and David, and when I was doing my research for this call, right, this is what we found is very, very powerful. So number 1, if you're going to do an ABM campaign, if you're like looking for an option, an ABM campaign is the right way to go. I usually suggest that a niche of up to 200 prospects, right? You don't need more than 200 in most cases, unless you're selling a B2C product and it's more of a horizontal thing, right? Most companies, right, if they're generating 1 or 2 customers per month are good enough. And the remarkable growth, the 100% scale happens because you're focusing on that niche. And some people are like, only 200? And I'm like, exactly, right? Because you'll grow more quickly, because you'll be the agency of record. You'll be the solutions partner that works specifically with companies in Lincoln, right, that are looking to grow at least 30% per year, that have at least $3 million in revenue and want to use the inbound process to get it.
That's fantastic. It's that I talk about it in the book, Pete, as well, about being a specialist and not a generalist, because then people regard you as the expert, and that's exactly what Dan's just said. The more you work into one niche, into a vertical, the more you get everybody looking at you as the expert in that niche, and that's a real strong position that's pretty much insurmountable by your competition once you own it.
Exactly. You are the go-to person. The amazing thing is in 2023, the niches still get smaller and smaller and smaller. The highest paid surgeon in the United States is Tiger Woods' knee surgeon, right? He only has 1 customer, right? But no one knows Tiger Woods' knee better than this guy, right? And he can charge anything, right? I borrowed that analogy from my buddy Greg Head, which I thought was amazing, right? Because that shows the change of the modern buyer process. It gets nichier and nichier and nichier, and will continue to, right? With artificial intelligence and the way in which all of this data is available. First of all, you have to have access to it. It can't be in a spreadsheet. It has to be, you have to be able to view the correlations of this, because it's not always apparent to the naked eye. 2, you don't need to go broad. You need to go specific. And you need to identify the clear and supportable value that you see in those in that particular niche, and then you just mine their niche, right? And you tell. I was just at a telecom conference. Lady said, we own all telecom companies that are between 20 million and 40 million, right? There's only 186 of them in the entire Southwest. Only do Southwest. They have people from like the middle of the United States call them and say, will you work with them? And they're like, no, there are different rules and regulations in the Southwest, and that's what we know. So that's what we're going to do. And it's a very powerful message to current customers, to future customers, to the employees of the company, and have been largely the reason for their success.
Incredible. Yeah. And we talk about using technology. So let's go on to this question here, which was what technology that business owners need to leverage to drive growth. So this whole show has been about driving growth. What elements of technology do you think they have to have?
Yeah, now this is a good one. And let me just explain. This is another change just over the last 5 years. In the old days, right, in the real old days, 1980s, you had on-premise software. I remember when I started my second company, I raised $400,000 US, 250,000 of it went to servers and Microsoft so I could have email from my employees. $250,000. Right now, you can start a company for $50, right? You get all the free stuff from Google and things like that, right? And so that focus on that, the price of technology has continued to decline. Amazing, right? HubSpot has all of our software products started free, right? This gives powerful, easy to use software into the hands of solo entrepreneurs, right? In ways that have never been available in the past. Right. And when you see the HubSpot CRM, which is free, right? CRM standing for Customer Relationship Management, and is an extension of all of your customers and the correlations of that, right? And you can get that for free and you can update it for free and it'll always be free. That is a huge leap forward of getting powerful technology to the average business user. Right.
Yeah, and so it's very critical. I think at the start of the show, we talked about making every touch point remarkable. And I think that's what CRMs do. And it's certainly businesses I've worked with. It just opens their eyes to how much they all know about conversations going on with people.
Well, three things. Number one, it helps you be remarkable, of course. Number two, it helps you practice that sales and marketing or schmarketing process. Because remember, a customer in the old days, when they went into the funnel, the sales funnel, right? It was either they're buying or they're not. Today, it's not a funnel. Today, it's a flywheel. So sometimes they'll take the long road, right? They're just doing educational research and they're not going to come back for another 2 years. That CRM helps you manage and control that with lead intelligence, lead notifications, and then linking directly to your calendar and your email. And then the third part is the data. Right. And the reason why we recommend that all entrepreneurs, even solo entrepreneurs, use a CRM is because the evaluation of the data is an essential component of really understanding not your personal bias, not what you think is going on, but what is actually happening. Right. And the ability for you to see in black and white where your best leads are coming from. If they're word of mouth leads, if they're coming from blogs or emails or whatever that you're sending out. Will make you much more efficient, right? And that is available to everyone at an incredibly low cost. It's all like a cloud software. It's super easy to use, right? And there's a variety of partners that will help you like originally set it up. But most business owners, even if you're not technical, right, will quickly grasp the way in which they can engage and understand and apply for ongoing success. And one of the most important ways of scaling 100% per year is understanding all of the data of where your best customers are coming from, where you should spend your time, where you should not spend your time, right? The toughest thing that I do as an advisor is asking companies, what's your close ratio? Most people don't know. Right. Then when they know what their close ratio is, that's the number of people who engage with a deal and that actually buy, then I want to understand it cut by a variety of different ways in that vertical market, right? And if the close ratio is 3%, then it's not worth starting the conversation. It's like, no. We're focused on this particular niche. Why? Because we do better work, because we have better references, because we understand seasonality and vocabulary. And right, it's not particularly effective for us to work on that. You're better off going to talk with somebody else that specializes in this niche.
And on the data side, I think because everybody who's an entrepreneur most people I've ever met has a strong opinion on things, and that's why they're entrepreneurs, a lot of them. So once you can get to that point of making data-driven decisions, like Dan said, and replacing your opinion, it becomes a very powerful tool, especially as you grow and scale the business.
I'm going to say it's essential. Right. You can't scale 100% unless you have a handle on the details. Right. Yeah. And the technology today, you can automate your workflows. Explain to the audience what a workflow is, Richard.
A workflow is effectively steps that you can automate through. So certain things will happen at certain times, sending emails. Most people would know an email sequence as a workflow. One email goes out, a second email then follows that up. A task is then created. So it's ways of automating what can be sometimes very complex tasks, but processing it out and turning it into something that can actually save you a lot of time and increase efficiency.
Amazing, right? And what happens if you're using workflows, right? What's the benefit back to the company?
It's predictable. Again, back to predictable growth, very predictable.
What's the benefit to the customer?
The customer gets the same experience every time, is what I always think.
That's
you're not
awesome.
relying on people, you're relying on the system.
Yes. And the benefit to the company is that you have a competitive advantage because you can focus on the things that are most important, solving for the customer. And after you're gathering all this data, you can understand which piece of information you deliver to the right person at the right time, right? Because some are going to be like spot on, right? Yeah. And it's a little bit of trial and error. But some blog articles that I sent people, like, that's exactly what I needed. I needed a checklist to understand whether I could afford this software or not, or I needed a checklist to understand if you even did workflows or sequences or scheduling kind of apps. That's all I needed. And you're like, okay, fine. And other people are like, no, that's not really what I'm looking for. This is what I'm looking for. Right. That technology and the appropriate use of technology gives people a huge competitive advantage for customer satisfaction, for understanding that data, and for productivity for internal employees.
And I spoke to someone who bought a lot of companies, and they said it's the processes I buy. It's not the really big flash entrepreneurs, because the business relies too much on them then. It's always the ones with the solid processes, because they know it's repeatable, don't they? They know it.
I think that's right. But now you got to prove it, right? And so as soon as you move beyond 3 folks, right, then that process has to be implemented. That process has to be defined. That process has to have the data that becomes easily evaluated and reviewed, so that everybody can look at it, can draw conclusions on it. In the old days, we spent all our time just trying to get the data. Today, we easily access the data, and we're able to then make informed decisions to ensure that we're headed in the right direction. We're solving for the customer. We're delivering the right information that they want. We're being accretive to the customer satisfaction. And then when the prospect actually becomes a customer, the customer success manager has access to all of that information. They're like, wait a second, it says here that this integration with this particular product into QuickBooks or Xero is like the most critical part of this component. And if you don't know that, right, that negatively impacts the ability for people to have a superior customer experience.
Absolutely. Right. I'm just going to move us on, just keeping an eye on the time. I'm going to move us on to the last question we had in from Matt Goddard. And he was asking, again, on data, metrics, KPIs. He said, what would you focus on measuring first in your business when you're looking at growth?
All right, I'm going to answer, and then I'm going to ask you that question. For me, it's always customer retention. In the old days, you always hired salespeople because you wanted to generate traction and grow 100% a year. Today, right, the whole basis of your book, Remarkable Growth, is you can't lose customers, right? No. So customer retention or customer success is the third person you hire, right? The co-founders are sales and technology, and the third person is from a very early stage. You're like, okay, we want you to be a customer forever. And it lends itself to what we were talking about in regard to picking that niche. Because if you have one type of customer that you're working with, one size, one location, one vertical market, it just becomes easier, right? Because you know all of the key attributes of what those people need and how to keep them happy. Right. You can invest more in the education of your employees so that they are very focused on the changes in that particular market, and you can stay ahead of the competition. So my first KPI is customer retention. How would you answer that question, Richard?
Yeah, I think without that, again, we go back to that old, you're so busy at the front end trying to generate new leads constantly. So yeah, I would definitely agree. I think most businesses you look at, certainly when I'm consulting with a business, it'll always, you've got plenty of leads. It's either conversion or retention. One of those two that's not working right.
All right. So the second thing then is that conversion, right? And that is very important. We like to chart out the process doing a reverse funnel analysis. It's not really a funnel anymore, but when I ask people, how many new customers do you want in 2023? They're like, I want 50. I'm like, okay, you want 50 customers. And if you get 50 customers, that will align with the expectations that you've set for cash flow, for your employees, for your scale. And they're like, yeah, 50. I'm like, all right, to get 50 customers, how many proposal or payment links do you have to put out? And 95% of people don't know. Like they'll be like, I think probably about 100. I'm like, you close at a 50% clip, and they're like, I think so. And you can tell that they're just guessing, right? But the most important thing is, all right, next year we want to know by department, by salesperson, by size of company, like vertical market, exactly what that is, right? That becomes essential information, that KPI of their close ratio. Because if you're closing at 6%, right, it's unlikely that that's in anybody's best interest. It's demoralizing. It's not in the customer's best interest. You should reevaluate whether it's even worthwhile going after that market. So now you have, let's say, 100 payment links to get to 50 customers. How many opportunities do you need to have to get to that 100 payment links? And let's say you need 200. Once again, most people don't have that information, especially if they're smaller business, but that's okay. Right. We just want to introduce this reverse funnel analysis because it's basic information. Let's say you need 200 opportunities. And now people are thinking, wow, 200 opportunities. That seems like a lot, right? To get to 100 payment links, to get to 50 customers. I'm like, all right, well, there's only a couple of things you can do. You can lower the number of customers. You can increase the closing ratio. And they're like, well, yeah, that's the one that I want. I'm like, okay, to do that, you got to spend less time on the vertical markets that are closing at 6% of the time and more of the time of the people that are closing 60%. Look at this, right? In this particular vertical market, right? It's closing at 60% of the time. You are the de facto success. Why don't you spend more time here? And they're like, okay, good recommendation. Then when you have the 200 opportunities, how many connect calls do you need to get to that 200 opportunities? And sometimes that's 400, sometimes that's 600, sometimes 800. You bring it all the way back to the sales and marketing process. This is how many leads that you need to generate that many connect calls, to generate that many opportunities. And once you have that, right, that goes and should map directly to your revenue forecast so that you understand, okay, if we follow through this blueprint, if we follow through the way, then we'll hit this remarkable growth. Then we'll be able to grow 100%. Then we'll be able to diagnose the processes and we'll be able to substantiate it via the technology that we've been using.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's so many people that they focus so heavily on adding volume into their business all the time, of traffic and things like that, all these different things they're trying to do. And actually it's the conversion that's the biggest blocker. That you're spot on with that. I see it repeatedly with people. They're spending a fortune on SEO, pay-per-click, social media, get that traffic moving. But actually, they've enough traffic. They've more than enough traffic.
Exactly. It's not always, I need more leads, right? We've seen that a lot. As more and more people get more sophisticated, what you really want is you want the right leads, the good fit leads. And you can reverse engineer that and understand based on previous history, and then reprioritize so you're focused on the high yield opportunities, right? So we call them high yield opportunities, Because by definition, if you're focused on the things that are going to give you more productivity, it's going to be better for you. It's going to be better for the prospect. It's going to be better for the customer, right? And it is a better, you're solving for the customers, a better customer experience. There's two other KPIs that I'd like to mention, and I think you know both of them. The first is NPS. And Richard, what does NPS stand for?
That's Net Promoter Score.
Yes. And what does that do? When you do an NPS, what is the outcome?
It's how likely people are to recommend you effectively. It's your, how likely are you to give us a referral? So.
Yeah. Sometimes there's a new version called CSAT, CSAT, right? But when I talk with entrepreneurs, they're always so positive, delusionally positive. They're like, oh, my customers love me. I'm like, how do you know? They're like, because they all tell me they love me. And I'm like, yeah, that's the ones you talk to. How about the ones that don't talk to you? Like, I'm not sure about that. I like, all right, you have to perform a KPI process called Net Promoter Score so that you can understand how much they love you, right? And if it comes back at 8, 9, or 10, then you're right, they love you. If it comes back less than that, that's not necessarily bad. At least you have the data and the facts, right? And that's critically important in understanding how your customers statistically view you. The other is ENPS, or employee NPS, right? And in 2023, right, HubSpot feels very strongly about culture, right? And over the last 10 years, HubSpot's created the culture code. You can just go and Google it, right? Which is, we say our product is for our customers, our culture is for our employees. And the employee in NPS is how valuable the employees judge how well senior management and middle management and direct management have on their life. Right. And spend a lot of time and effort. And it's always good to not make assumptions and get the data about how valuable and how tangible the employee experience is, because this is kind of interesting. Which would you rather have, happy employees or happy customers?
Well, happy employees make happy customers, don't they?
Boom! You have the right answer. We didn't talk about that either. That was
we didn't.
High risk. I know, but you're right. As a good entrepreneur, if you don't have happy employees, you can't have happy customers, right? So everybody says, keep the customer happy. Like, it's really keep the employee happy, who can then keep the customer happy. That's the key. And if your ENPS doesn't measure up to snuff, and by the way, it's super easy. You can do it on a Survey Monkey, and it's free, and you just go out and create it, right? But it gives you a data point of how to solve problems. And in 2023, the ability to instantly get your hands on that data and that KPI in a way that's easy to understand, easy to identify, and then go ahead and solve it is a huge advantage. Amazing.
Right. So we've got about 5 minutes left, Dan. Is there any words of wisdom you want to leave the audience before you?
Buy this book. Buy this book, right? It's not just because I wrote the foreword, right, which is one of the best parts of the book. It's because Richard has done this before, right? And remarkable growth to me is not just the scale or 100% growth. That is important. And if you don't follow the blueprint of what's written, right, it's very, very hard. It's possible, right? But it's all about these processes and planning in advance and aligning your process. Most entrepreneurs who are growing 100% per year have two jobs. Number one is hit their number today. And number two, plan for what's going to happen on the additional level of scale, right? And that is super hard in today's economy with all the moving parts, with all the things that are going on, right? So the book is a great blueprint of making sure that in some cases you'll just check that, yeah, we're doing that. Some people are like, wow, we haven't thought of that. And add additional firepower to your arsenal to make sure that you're doing all the right stuff so that you're prepared to grow effectively.
Incredible. Well, thank you for your time, Dan. I will see you all soon. And I'm just going to take Dan off the screen for a minute and give you the next show that's coming up. Right. So we've got a show already set up for Monday, the 17th of July. I spoke yesterday to Andrea Pacini, who's the author of Confident Presenter. His new book's coming. He actually did all the work that I needed on my PowerPoint decks. He worked through all of those with me. He's an expert in presenting. And as Dan said, the power and the ability to present is so powerful in the modern economy. The more that you can present in a confident way, which is why he wrote the book Confident Presenter, the more effective you'll be as an entrepreneur and the more remarkable your business will be. So it's all about remarkable presentations. He'll go through PowerPoint presentations. He'll go through speaking presentations. He'll go through a lot of the tricks of the trade that he shared with me that really keep it engaging and keep your audience involved in what you're talking about. So they go away and they remember it. They don't go away and forget everything you've said. So Andrea Pascini will be joining us on Monday, the 17th of July, again, 6 p.m. GMT. So I look forward to seeing you all then. Take care, and I hope you've enjoyed the show.